Hey, what's up, everybody? Mogion Monster here, along with Stevieb B.
Hello.
Welcome to Why the Fascination, or WTF as we like to call it. Hope everybody's doing well. Great to see everybody in chat already.
Good evening, everybody.
Sharon, how are you? Hey, Jeff, Pine Island Research.
Jeff was first.
Grasshopper. What's up, buddy? Hey, Mark, good day. Tight lines, man. Hi, Judy.
Greetings, Danny.
What's up, Danny? Who else?
Val. Hi, Val.
Mr. Lee. Hey, Val.
I'm scrolling
Good to
back
see you.
now.
Actually, I went all the way to the top before
Did
I went
you?
live. I started at the top and now I'm scrolling down.
I usually do too, but this
Mr.
time
Hand, what's up, buddy?
it got away from me this time. Sharon, how are you?
I don't like what I'm sitting on here. Yeah, I heard that. I don't know how that was.
You sound like the basket again.
Oh, maybe. I didn't. Probably. I get a phone call from a friend a little while ago, but it was weird because first I have a phone for my work. The work phone goes off, but I can't answer it because it's saying it's in pocket mode. And I know it's turned off. The pocket mode status or whatever. So I can't answer it. It stops ringing. I look up the number and it's an Arizona number. I have the phone in this hand. I'm looking at the phone, Arizona number, and this phone, my phone rings. I pick it up and it's my buddy who I know from Arizona. We talked for almost an hour. Halfway through this conversation, I'm smudging.
I was asleep the whole time. Had no idea.
He's just getting into stuff, and I'm going to ask anybody if you guys know anybody as far as who's heavily into the spiritual stuff, as far as mediumship, channeling, anything like that. You know, the heavier stuff, because this guy's getting involved with stuff on his own that he's. I just
Spirit-wise,
he needs direction. Yeah, he found an app and he's playing with this,
diving deep into things that he doesn't really know about.
He keeps saying he's not afraid. I'm not afraid. I said, yeah, dude, they don't give a shit if you're afraid or not, man. You know, if something wants to
attach itself.
Yeah, he's open to it. The other day there was a storm, and maybe it was last night or the night before, and he heard that spirits don't like all the lightning, so he opens up his house, every door and every window, and invites everything in. And
literally asking for it.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, you got to be careful.
But the thing is, since they talked... Sorry.
Go ahead. You started.
Since they talked, just little things have been happening around the house. Stuff falling over.
So we have this conversation, and I hang up, and I'm like, dude, you got to, before I hang up, I'm like, you just be careful, and you're delving into shit you know nothing about. He's assuming shit, and I tell Stevie about it, and we're sitting on the couch, and something startles the dog where she gets up, and she knocks over a can of paint. Didn't spill it. The paint hits the ground. Something else. Cigarettes fell off the chair.
The back of the chair.
And then my phone rings, and it's him again. But as soon as it all happened and the phone rang, Stevie's like, Jesus Christ, like what the hell's going on?
Well, because the phone rang the exact same time I think that the can of paint fell over.
Hit the ground. Yeah. But everything happened at once, so.
You had just answered the phone, and I'm sitting on one end of the couch. He's on the other. Chairs in the middle of the room, basically. Pack cigarettes falls off the back of the chair. Dogs were nothing was close to that chair or had touched the chair. Cigarettes fell off. I'm in the bathroom earlier, just about a half hour ago, and I hear something in the room. I pop my head out, and laundry basket knocked over right in front of the doorway. But
so So I want to direct this guy to, or I got to hook him up with somebody that might be able to help him out.
He needs guidance.
He needs guidance, direction, whatever. But I don't get that into the paranormal, and especially the shit he's doing. He calls me back and says that he just talked to a medium or a psychic in North Carolina, and this guy's saying how he's got really strong power, and he'd rather him come to North Carolina and meet with him so he can be ready, like he can prepare himself to protect himself because he's afraid of my friend. So I don't know what he's getting involved in. I'm just like,
I don't like it. I don't like it. I sat here right before the show and lit a sage bundle, and as I'm sitting there lighting it, I'm gently blowing on it to get it going, and it exploded in my face. I've never had that happen. It popped. It went right in my face. It didn't seem like one little spark. It seemed like it just like a firework. Yeah.
And I explained to him, I said, dude, this is the reason why I smudge before every show, because you don't know what you're going to run into. I don't know if somebody hops in chat, no, I'm going to come on and I'm going to talk about spirits or shit that's happened to me. They might bring shit into the show that can easily attach itself to me, to her, to
the house.
Because shit can happen through electronics. I've seen it.
Especially if you're sensitive to it. And I think everyone in here has a certain something that makes us a lot of us sensitive.
Grasshopper says scam stuff. He'll be dragged into a money game. Yeah, I said, dude, contact more than one. He was like, oh, I got 3 on, 3 lined up. I'm going to call now. But he's like, you're the only one I can talk to. You won't think I'm crazy. I'm like, no, I don't think you're crazy, dude. But I think you're. He says he's dabbling. I said, dude, you're not dabbling. You're fucking diving head first into shit you know nothing about. Because of an app, he found that. I don't know how he's seeing the spirits, if it's on the phone screen but he found that they react to certain things. Sage. He said you take fresh sage and you throw it at them and they'll back off. But if you burn that sage like I do, they disappear. Different crystals and stuff. He was throwing down the hall. I'm like, you're throwing shit at him. What do you mean? He's like, yeah, getting it near them and watching on the screen how they react. And he notices he's getting reactions from these, whatever he's seeing. But then he's like, I want to see the nasty. I want to know how the nasty got to be the way it is. like meaning bad, evil shit. I just, I got so uncomfortable that I started smudging. I'm carrying the phone, and I just went and grabbed my smudge bundle and sat there and started smudging. And I even told him, I said, I'm smudging right now because of this. It was hard to get a word in edgewise. He just would yep, and then repeated himself. He said he hasn't had an attachment for years. Didn't talk about it, didn't get into it, don't know what it is, but I
don't like it.
And I got to figure out how to help. It's me helping everybody. I enjoy helping people, don't get me wrong. Northwoods, what's up, buddy? Shit show is usually what follows my ex. Yeah, my ex was like a fucking tornado. Just path of destruction wherever she went. Ooh, hey, Tina. No, there's other people that hopped in and I missed. Mind Muscle Mobility, what's up?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. Pine Island Research says there's no dabbling. You're in or
Mind
you're out.
muscle mobility. Sorry, go ahead. Read that again, and I'll
He said you're either you're in or you're out. There's no just the tip.
Mind muscle mobility. Congratulations. Says I cut weight to become the #1 featherweight arm wrestler in the United States a couple days ago.
Oh, right on.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Lucy.
That is awesome. Congratulations. I get it.
Right.
Somehow
That's very
fix
cool.
my computer. Need to wedge something under it. Does she have to go out? Is that what she's
I
doing?
don't know. Right now she's happy with me just
Touching her?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to, hey, Kelly, I want to find him somebody. So since we're in this weird ass community that we're in, somebody's got to know somebody.
Tina G, mine too.
What's up, Jay? Jay Fritz. He just described everybody in here.
Right.
I'm old and sore and hurting.
Me too.
Me three.
Oh my god. Jay, I want that mug. He sent me a screenshot of a mug. All things elephants. Don't piss me off. I'm a grumpy old woman. I do what I want, when I want, where I want. Your approval is not required. That's you're not gonna be able to see it. Yeah, you can't see it on there. It's a cute little elephant lip. Well, you can cute little elephant on it.
Doing yoga?
Yeah. It's cute.
Was it the downward dog?
Yeah.
Or is it downward elephant?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So anyway, enough of that babble.
Sorry. Look, it's farting. That red little cloud is a fart.
Oh, wonderful.
It's Jay. Sorry, guys.
Hope everybody is well. If you're new here, welcome. What we do is we post the link in chat. And anybody can come on, talk about anything they want to talk about. You have, story you want to tell, just got a promotion, whatever. You want to talk, just want to hang out. You can click on the link. And if you do, follow the directions. Pretty simple. Fill in your name, whatnot. And just if you don't want to be on camera, you can go to the bottom of the screen. It says stop cam. So you don't have to be on camera. Also, all I ask is that you turn off YouTube. Just watch on StreamYard.
Robert Dan Dugan.
Hey, Robert.
Good evening.
Jay power washed his house Friday. Yeah, that'll take it out of you. Mark, it has. Thank you. Not completely. I wish.
A lot.
But yeah, a lot.
Tremendously.
Still feel a little funky though. Still can't whistle
NAC.
or spit.
Sharon Guy.
Hey,
How are you,
Sharon.
dear?
David, what's happening? So yeah, I did I post the link?
Sharon,
Oh, no, there it
when
is.
are you meeting up with Christy and them? Is that this weekend coming or? I remember her saying something last show.
Thank you, Judy. She says I look normal. And it's still weak. Still, but it
I
is.
barely noticed.
Well, WNEW radio, WNEW New York, that was a rock station. But I don't fan of progressive music.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, when I was growing up, it was a rock station. I'm trying to remember I don't even remember what they were on the dial. Like in New York, like 95.5 was WPLJ or Z100 or I think NEW was like 102.7. Yeah.
He said in the 70s they played progressive music.
Scott Muni, Dave Herman, those are DJs from WNEW. I haven't heard that. I forgot all about WNEW. Scott Muni was a morning DJ. Scottso. He had this really distinct voice. Gary Johnson, how are you? Gary Sr., what's up? The Garys are in the house.
Right.
So what else is going on? Something else I was going to mention. Oh, yeah. So as you can see, Stevie's okay. She got into a little fender bender the other night, and I felt bad. You know, I was just getting ready to come on Jeff's show the other night, and the phone rang. It was Stevie, and she's freaking out. She got into an accident, the car's totaled, or it's really bad, and she couldn't get out of the truck at where she was parked, where she stopped. She couldn't get out because people were flying by, so she didn't get out and look at the truck.
I was hearing people running over bits and pieces of what I'm assuming is my truck, because I got really slammed hard from behind. Guy took off.
Hit and run.
Yeah.
So I was getting ready to go down there, and we worked it all out. We figured it all out, with a little help from a tow truck driver who didn't have to tow her. Just kind of bent something out of the way. And what happened is
me climbing underneath.
All said and done, the exhaust got moved, and the
heat shield.
The heat shield got kind of pushed up against the tire.
It got pushed into the tire. So if I was driving, because I attempted to leave, went about 6
just
blocks.
To move the vehicle to a safer spot.
Yeah, and I could smell the rubber burning on it. So I had to push the heat shield away from the tire. But I was able to drive it home slowly.
She got hit in the corner in the back, and it's an Escape, so it's like an SUV type thing. It's all plastic, but it pushed the corner in so far that it hit the frame or whatever it was, some sort of, I think it was a trailer hitch frame underneath the truck, but it punched through and then popped right out. So now you look at it, you just see a hole.
Right.
It's weird with like
it is.
It's like, how the fuck? Because it's coming from the inside out.
Yeah.
And it got pushed up in a corner, but it doesn't look bad.
No, not at all.
You look at it and go.
The guy that hit me took off. He's got serious damage. I mean, there was big pieces of his car. People were running over beside me. That's why I thought it was mine, because how hard he hit me. But he left. The whole reason that it happened is I'm driving down this 2-lane highway, getting ready to get on the exit for a toll road, and I see headlights coming right to me.
A wrong-way driver.
So I slowed down. I took my foot off the gas. I saw it from afar. I mean, it was a good distance, probably about a quarter mile. And I'm like, what the hell am I looking at? I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So I slowed down, and I threw my hazards on. That was the thing. I threw my hazards on, and out of nowhere, this guy, it was a little bit of a hill, but it wasn't big enough to where he had to have seen me. He just wasn't paying attention. I don't know, but he saw me at the last second, he turned the wheel enough or else he was going to hit me just straight on. It would have been a hell of a lot worse. But I got jolted. I didn't see him coming, so it wasn't like I tensed up or anything. My shoulders, my head, everything from my shoulders up has been sore, but
they were sore.
I was just getting ready to say that. It just amplified it for a couple days. But yeah, he left, and the guy that was coming straight towards me, head on, driving up the wrong side of the highway, he slows down about 100 yards in front of me and goes over to the other lane and goes right around me. Still, I'm looking in my rear view, and he's just steady dodging cars going up the highway until he got over the hill. I couldn't see him anymore.
Jeff, you did a great job on that dedication. Well done.
Excuse me.
You did, dude.
I'm sorry I missed it. I even text Mogs. I was like, hey, are you watching Jeff's show? He's like, yep. I was headed home. That was the plan.
She had started back, so I figured I had time. That's why I jumped on. And as soon as I jumped on, the phone rang, and she had gotten stuck, or she was stuck and needed.
Well, the guys from the tow truck driver had a guy riding with them. The two of them they were on the ground. One was under, the other one was on the outside, and they had, between the both of them, it took a lot of strength for them to move the muffler, how bent over it was. It was sticking way out where the wheel is. So they had pushed that back over, and here I had a bungee cord, so kind of strapped it up there, and everything seemed fine. So I took off, and as soon as I got on the road again, I could hear it rubbing. Something was still in the wheel, and then I started smelling the rubber burn. I didn't get maybe a quarter mile up on the other side of the exit. I wasn't going to get on the toll road. I wasn't going to take a chance, and that rate of speed.
Hey, Ms. Dell.
So I was going to take the back roads. I went past the exit, and not much further past the exit, there was a high school. I pulled into the parking lot of the high school. People are great. I followed a police officer and a sheriff, and I get out. First off, it's a Friday night, and I'm pulling onto school property. You think that might pique the sheriff's curiosity? No, he went and parked in the back corner and facing me, headlights facing me, but I'm probably a good, I don't know how far, all the way on the other side of the parking lot he was. But never once come to ask if I needed help. Never once to acknowledge me whatsoever. I was there for, good hour, trying to figure out what the hell was rubbing in the tire. I couldn't see it because I wasn't up underneath the truck. But yeah.
So I jumped off the show because I figured I had to go help. But yeah, I just wanted to get back and say, good job, Jeff. You did a really good job.
Michael Haywood.
Hey, Michael. And I was reading, and you said Joe is now at home in home hospice. Very good. It's better for him to be home.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just reading real quick, guys.
I'm scrolling through chat myself. Angel Nolan. Hello.
Miss Dill. Leave a like, subscribe, and share for the love of Moog. Or just do it for the sake of doing it.
Miss Dill has to come on and say hello. She got out of it when you first had your Bell's palsy and you didn't do a show. She was going to jump on, remember? I remember.
Yeah, you're overdue, Ms. Dell, so it'd be nice to see you.
It would.
Else. So what else is going on?
You've been painting.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can see this is the new color. It's
Half behind me too.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
I only got so far. I did like literally the room ends like here, and then this starts the kitchen. This side's the living room. It's all open, but that's as far as I got with the painting. I got that end done. I got the living room done.
It looks good.
I still have to do the one part of the ceiling, cut in a little bit.
I can't
But I wanted to get all this done before the floors. I gotta get curtains. I just want some darkening curtains. I have
I'm looking
blinds,
for
but
those.
I did like this wall right here is gonna be a different color. I have like I don't know if it's a slate blue or some sort of gray. I don't know if it has a name. I did an accent wall at the end, and then these are different. These are like a grayish, really light gray.
It almost
blue.
looks blue
Yeah,
gray, really light.
So this wall is going to be the same gray as the end wall.
And there's about a foot.
Yeah,
That goes.
there's a height change in the ceiling, so there's a foot wall above my head, between two ceilings that's gray also. But when it's done and everything's in, I'm taking some photos along the way, not as much as I should, like before and after shit. But it's cheap.
It looks nice. It does. And he's been working hard. And I've been sitting on my ass watching. Not lying. He won't let me help.
There's nothing to do.
He won't let me help.
You want something done right, you do it yourself, right?
See, that's. I get it. I do. I get it. But
No, I'm not. It's just I get into a groove and we'd be bumping into each other.
I get it. I'm eager to help. I love painting. I love doing shit like that. Looked up some houses in my past that I lived in.
Yeah, it's good.
It's nice.
It's better than that paneling that's like you'll see
Behind me.
it. Yeah, you can't
With a
see.
clock.
Well, yeah, but it's too dark over there.
You kind of see it.
But yeah, you've seen it. It's just paneling, so I painted it over it. I did a coat of primer, kills or whatever I used,
I think the lighter
and then
makes it
2 coats of the paint.
more open. It seems.
Well, no, that's
you know.
that's why I went lighter, because dark colors enclose an
Yeah, it
area.
makes you
They make it feel smaller.
Right. This
So
opens the room up big time. I like it. Been looking online for curtains.
I kind of know what I want, and they're going to be great too.
Shut up.
But I think even darker than.
Yeah, I have an idea. I'll show you some pictures.
It's
later.
funny because my couch is gray too. I don't know what kind of gray fucking.
I think it's blue.
It's blue gray. It's not far off.
It's almost
from the
like
paint.
a tone of the paint. It really is.
Anyway, enough about my fucking
Home decor.
interior designing. But that's why I'm kind of glad that work's been slow, because I have this project going on. So it's kind of hard to juggle everything.
Yeah, I do too, Sharon. I love to
Let me
paint.
see what he
You
said.
won't let me.
Grasshopper Mogues didn't see my suggest, so now I gotta go back. Just get some paisley wallpaper. Nah. I'm getting away from the 70s. That was
Yeah,
this
that's the whole idea.
This trailer was built in 1970.
And not much has changed.
Well, the counters are newer, the cabinets are newer.
Well, yeah,
They've
cabinets,
been
for sure.
changed. because damn well it had some dingy yellow from mica with these faded little boomerang designs and metal edging. It had that at one point. I found, when I took the baseboards off and pulled up the carpet and the padding and the stick and everything, and underneath the paneling, there's still just like where they took a razor and just ran down it of the old carpet, which is this hideous green.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was weird. I'm painting, not paying attention. And then last night, I got to a spot and I rolled it and I looked at it and I just felt like I smiled. Like I got this feeling of like, holy shit, this is mine. I always painted everybody else's shit. But this was mine. And it was a weird feeling.
That's cool.
Anyway.
Yeah, Judy said every wall in this entire home is in a soft white. I don't like white walls. I said no white, no off-white.
Well, this could pass for a white, but it does have a blue tint to it.
It's just enough tint to where it, doesn't look white.
Yeah, that's this stuff. I don't think it has a color.
Where's the, do you still have the paper?
It's actually called Daylight.
Is it?
Yeah. That's fucked up. Daylight. I guess, yeah, it kind of fits.
Right.
All right. I can't see shit, really. So yeah, guys, the link is in chat. Anybody wants to pop on, please do.
Sharon Guy. I bet I know what you're talking about. I saw some.
I'm trying not to sniff it, but accidents happen.
Well, you've been painting, and I thought about that yesterday. Open a window.
No, I've been painting for years, and it doesn't affect me.
It might explain a lot.
I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry. No, I'm more concerned with the year I spent doing furniture, stripping antique furniture and refinishing furniture, because we use a lot of acetone.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
A lot of acetone.
Yeah, that might explain.
She did brain cells. Yeah, and I didn't wear gloves.
Smart. My comments not scrolling. My chat's not scrolling on here. On the StreamYard.
Kelly says sage is a good color for a room.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, Kathy. Welcome. Get her done and come have some fun.
Michael Haywood. Did Moke say he stripped for furniture for a year?
Hey, you gotta
do what you gotta do.
Yeah, it's the house isn't gonna furnish itself. Tip sucked. I was gonna
say it didn't last long.
Like I said, it was a lot of acetone.
It was the 3 for you.
See, and he took acid, a lot of it. Actually, I've only done acid once in my life. True story.
did a couple times in my younger years. TMI.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't break my neck though when I fucking did that acid. We ended up next to this. It was in a park, and it was on a hill. There was a hill, and there was a stream coming down the hill, and there were all these rocks next to it. We went and hung out up there.
Jeez.
Me and this guy, we were both on acid, and we ended up like running down along this stream for like, you know, however long it was. But rock hopping, but it was the middle of the night.
Oh wow.
And we didn't have lights.
No lights, yeah.
Graz is going back to the 70s. Did you ever get out of them?
That's when I was born.
No, I enjoyed being raised in the 70s. That was a fun time. You know, as far as being a kid, you know.
70s and 80s. That was the best time to be a kid.
1970, I was 3 years old.
I wasn't born until 73.
But I remember, like, my neighbors and, like, they were, the kids and the neighbors, like, at the neighbor's house were into the hippie shit, you know, and
Well, I was just
and
thinking,
the black light posters and
right?
just
The velvet black light posters.
you know,
We were
lava
bell
lamps
bottoms
and
and
shit. Yeah.
hush puppy shoes.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the 70s. I was born in 73. We moved from Maryland to the Virginia side in 1980. I was in the first grade, well, kindergarten, first grade.
Grass says, no, I live in the 70s basement. It's a man cave with no frills.
No, it was a fun time to be a kid. I mean, you could run and play, and it seemed like we didn't have much to worry about each other.
Drink out of the garden hose.
Right.
I was never home. I took advantage of the fact that my mother was an alcoholic, and, you know, it gave me a lot of free time.
My mom wasn't fun to be around, so I was outside all the time. All the time. Riding my bike, walking, didn't matter. Running around in what we called trails. We had big trails, little trails. Little trails were just the shortcut to get to the shopping center. Big trails just went on and on for miles.
We had the Red Desert. That's what they called the section of woods next to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who named it, where it got its name, but yeah. And it's actually like, it's probably connected at some point. It's like the northernmost or northeast corner of, say, the Pine Barrens. You know, like those woods went for a long time, and they probably connected, you know, were part of a, connected to that somehow. But yeah, I was always crabbing, fishing, never home.
Never home. I was only home when it was check-in time. Yeah, we'd have to check in every couple hours, and definitely had to be home for dinner by 5. Yeah, in the house when the street lights came on.
There were a few times I didn't make it home.
Oh, there were quite a few times. I was always grounded. Are you kidding me? You could hear my mom calling. Neighbors would hear it, just like a freaking, you know, whatever you want to call it, but
Nails on chalkboard.
yeah, that
To your
too.
neighbors.
No, but it was like everybody looked out for each other. So if I'm on the other side of the neighborhood and somebody hears my mom, it got to me. Yeah, big time.
No, I stayed like one time I stayed too late at the fireman's fair. You know, that's what they call it. They have a fireman's fair every year, and it's probably because of a girl. You know, she called and to the fire department or the police department.
Wow.
And said she couldn't find me, didn't know where it was, and they found me there. You know, I'm like barefooted, no shirt, cut off shorts. Get approached by a fireman. Are you so and so? I'm like, yeah. He goes, your mother's looking for you. I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah, that's that heart sinking
Getting driven
moment.
home in a fire in a back of a police car, just because hey, I was probably 12.
I was younger than that. I think I was like 8, 9 years old. My sister and I, and a bunch of friends from the neighborhood, we all snuck out one night. There was a carnival in the shopping center that I mentioned, having to go through the little trails to get to. And so we all met up at the playground and took off and went to the carnival. And we were out all night before you know it. The sun's coming up. Me and my sister were walking down Route 1, heading back to the neighborhood. We didn't want to cut through the trails in the dark. So by ourselves, so we took the long way going down Route 1. Fairfax County Police pulls up right behind us, lights on, and first thing he asked was, are you Kathy, Stephanie? We're looking at each other like, oh shit.
We're famous.
We're like, what the fuck? Yeah, he gets out of the car, actually put handcuffs on us. He handcuffed us and put us in the, yes. And the funny thing was, we were terrified to go home because we were going to get our ass beat from our mother. We knew it. The officer's sitting there and he's calling in saying he found us and all that. And he's trying to lecture us. Not trying, he was like kind of going off. And he's like, he said, I can take you to juvenile detention, or, you're lucky I'm taking you home. And me and my sister looked at each other both at the same time, said, we'd rather go to juvie. And he just looked like, oh shit, because it was spontaneous. I mean, neither one of us had a second to think of it, but we both said it at the exact same time.
Robert says, I grew up in the suburbs, not near any woods, played a lot of the baseball field at my local elementary school. In the summer, the city had parks and recreation programs and at the school during the day. Right on.
That's cool. Yeah, we used to go play on Sundays. We'd go to the local elementary school and play kickball or softball. Yeah, I think the last time I played softball was when I got knocked in the head. I got knocked out. I did. The one and only time I got knocked out, I was playing catcher, and I'm playing with adults. I mean, these are, to me, I was probably, 12.
You got knocked
13. Yeah. I did. I was playing catcher, and somebody nailed the ball to the outfield. One of the guys caught it. He's playing third base, and he throws, just hammers it into home plate as I'm supposed to catch it. I remember it hit my left foot, popped up, and boom, right in my forehead. I fell back. I hit the ground on my back. I was knocked out. I remember waking up and everybody standing around me. I'm like, what the hell just happened? I had a freaking goose egg on my forehead. Yeah, I think that's the last time we all went and played, honestly. Everybody was scared that I was brain dead or something. You should have seen it. I wish to God I had a picture of it. It was the most freakish thing I've ever seen. Big ass knot about the size of a softball on my forehead. Luce, come here. She might need to go out. I will be back.
What's up, Jeff?
Good timing.
He was there.
No, he's there.
I might be buffering.
There it is. What's up, man?
Hanging in there. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
Glad Stevie's doing okay after her little collision there. Or I shouldn't say collision. It wasn't her fault. It was the guy behind her.
and it was a hit and run.
Yeah, so I mean, it always seems like there's more damage to the car that hits you than the one that gets hit. And be interesting to see the front of their vehicle.
It would, yeah. I don't. She said it was like almost like an SUV type vehicle, but the guy hit, slowed down a little bit, and then kept going, and it took off.
Jeez. So stupid.
And it was because of a wrong way driver.
Yeah. I just there's certain things that when you hit somebody and you leave the scene of an accident, that should be like an automatic felony. I mean, like if they actually stop you eventually, I don't get where that stuff gets plead down or it's a misdemeanor. It's like, dude, you could have killed somebody, you know? How would they know? They just leave. But
no, it's I'm just glad she was okay. And then when she finally did get home, the next day I went out and I looked at the truck and it's drivable.
Yeah.
It's not wrecked. So, you know.
Is there just bumper damage and nothing on the frame?
Yeah. Yeah. No, the frame's, it's the bumper, and the rear quarter panel got pushed up and the trim popped off. But it's all plastic, so it didn't get all crunched underneath. It just kind of took the impact and popped back out.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, it's just so when somebody gets rear-ended, you never really know what the damage is going to look like. When I was younger, right when I first got out of the military, I was driving a Geo Metro, like a two-door Geo Metro, you know, this little Reynolds wrap vehicle. You think you'd fold it right in half if you hit anything, you know. And this hill was all iced over, and I was going downhill, and this big Ford F-250 truck was in front of me, and they stop at the light, and I'm trying to stop, and I'm just sliding down this hill. And I wasn't going super fast, but I knew I was going to rear end this truck. And I hit him probably going 15, 18 miles an hour, you know. And his bumper was like folded in half, and the front of my Geo Metro didn't have a scratch on it.
That's weird.
And the cop shows up to take a report, and he's asking me, what vehicle were you driving? I said, that one. And he looks at the front of it and he goes, no, seriously, what vehicle were you? I said, that's the one. He goes, the back of that truck has like $3,000 worth of damage. He goes, there's no way you were driving a Geo Metro. And I said, yeah. It's just weird.
That's crazy.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, so back to what I had said the other day. Good job with that show you did.
Oh, I appreciate it. I mean, I was an honor to do it. I mean, that I was honored that Joe and Molly were interested in having it done. First of all, you know, a lot of people have a hard time being the center of, you know, something like that, even though they know they need some help. It's not easy to put your hand out and be the subject of it, you know.
Sure.
But after spending about an hour on the phone with Joe and Molly, I realized that this wasn't really a deal where Molly needs that money in order to handle these final expenses. That is just a burden that they should not have to deal with. But I really felt like when it comes to Joe, what he really needs more than anything was really an opportunity to spend an hour or two seeing the visual impact that he has had in other people's lives. You know, it's one thing to think, well, I did a show for a couple of years, you know, what good did it do? How many people liked it? You'll never really know those answers.
Sure.
But to see, you know, 50, 60, 70 people get together and all talk about the impact you had on them over the last few years in this community, I thought that's something that Joe would be uplifting for him. That would be something that,
Absolutely.
you know, he would really appreciate. It's hard to think of what could you say to Joe that would lift him up in the midst of what he's dealing with.
Yeah.
And there's very little that could do that.
I struggled with that. Like,
Yeah.
what do
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
said that. It's like, you don't know what to say sometimes. It's just,
Yeah. No, I don't. And like when I told him the first time I called him, I says, there's things I want to say, there's things I'm thinking, but the last thing I want to do is I don't want to say anything that's not genuine. I'm not here to tell you, oh, hang in there, buddy, whatever. I mean, that's not being real. It's not easy to hang in there when you know that any day you're going to go. But yet I was really struggling to find the words that really laid it out there. Like I said in the broadcast, I don't want to talk about him like he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But yet he doesn't have longer than a month, really, realistically, not according to these doctors. I mean, I'd love to know that they're wrong. I'd love to find out that they were all wrong. But from what they're telling him, he doesn't have that long. So I'm looking at when I talk to him, I'm trying to be thoughtful in trying to lift him up in realistic ways without acting like
right.
Yeah.
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 It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of people that send him a message, on Facebook or whatever, and just type it and then back it up and type it again and back it up because it's like, I don't really get how to put what I'm feeling without it coming out not appropriate to the, And Joe knows that. Joe knows that because when you try to struggle with it right away, Joe says, "I get it, dude. Just say it." He says, He knows how hard it is.
What is it? Where was it?
In front of Lucy. Sorry.
Dog was playing with something. It was a nail. Right? Is that where?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, that was weird.
Look at Lucy.
My female dog is humping the other female dog.
I'm not sure I want to know what Jen's talking about. She's a grass that's 8.7 inches high. Now. What is she talking about?
No.
Oh, she got a used car.
Robert says, question for Jeff. Have you ever gone out investigating with the She-Squatchers? They just posted some pics from northern Minnesota with Randy. I don't remember his last name.
So Randy, he owns the property that Doug has all of his live cams on. It's been a property that I've never been to the property. But for a couple years, there is a power line cut that runs through this remote property that seems to be attracting, fairly common, almost like a habituation type thing. I don't know if they live on the property necessarily, but close enough where they must be frequenting it quite often. But then again, I've had Randy as a guest on my show. Randy will tell you some stories that are hard to wrap your head around. I mean, I'm just being honest about that. For a lot of people, it's hard to. He talks about how he came home and the door was unlocked to his house and there was a melted popsicle on the kitchen and something urinated all over the bed. And I'm like, whoa, this sounds like a drunk friend playing a prank on you more than Bigfoot coming into the house, Yeah. But it is a property that Doug has put live cams on, and She-Squatchers went and investigated this property and was out there, and they had a daytime sighting. as far as the she squatchers go, my I have worked with them as far as some project work. I haven't been out in the field looking doing anything Bigfoot related. Jen is an empath who does some remote viewing and stuff. I never really was on board with that. I didn't understand it. It wasn't my wheelhouse. I couldn't really speak to whether or not I believed in that or not because I wasn't that familiar with what it even was, right? But doing the blood run stuff, I had spoke to Jen quite a bit because I wanted to put her out in the middle of all these Indian burial mounds and see if she could connect with somebody on what happened here. Thought that would really be interesting if that could be done, but never been out bigfooting with them. No.
Yeah, I've seen. I think Jen did a show with you, didn't she?
Yeah, I've been on their show twice, and then Jen was on my show, and then I believe I had all of them on my show at one point, all three of them. And I know they've been on Doug's show and whatnot too, but they spend a lot of time going around to the different conventions. They're quite a draw at that. They have a lot of merchandising. They speak at a lot of stuff. They kind of bring a unique approach in that it's three females out in the woods, which is not something you see a lot, when it comes to, the across the board approach to Bigfoot research. So, they've got stuff to talk about that is different, and I think the ideas that they come up with attract a lot of people's thoughts, but they aren't all from the same area. One lives in Fargo, I think one lives in the Carolinas, and so it's not like they're all together every weekend.
Yeah, they're not neighbors.
No. But Jen is from the Red Lake Indian Reservation, just north of my lake home up in northern Minnesota. It's a large reservation on Upper and Lower Red Lake, and that's where her roots are. And my research area a year and a half ago is literally bordering. It's about 22 miles from where she grew up. So it's a pretty interesting area up there.
Yeah, I enjoyed the show that she did with you. Like I walked away going, "Wow, I want to talk to her."
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that I've tried to take that approach, over this last year, especially when I moved it to Untold, was that I don't have to believe in what you believe in. I don't have to subscribe to the same theories as you to be open-minded enough to have a conversation and say, tell me why you feel the way you do. Why do you believe what you do? When it comes to some of those things, I do think that it's possible that she's able to do what she does, obviously. But as far as how some of that works and this and that and the reasoning why, I don't know that I subscribe to those same theories as her, But that doesn't mean we can't have an intelligent conversation about it,
No, absolutely.
A lot of people just close that off and say, "Oh, I don't understand that. So there's no way that can happen," But
Well, it's that closed-mindedness that just, they have it in their mind. Okay, this is the way it works, and it can't work that way.
Yeah. I've started really kind of preaching the tagline when I went to Untold that just because something that hasn't happened to me doesn't mean that it couldn't have happened to you.
Right.
And so it's not like I have to. I take the scientific approach to my research. So I've got to see and touch and smell and taste all this data in order for it to make sense and try to make sense of it. But when I'm hearing somebody else's encounter, I have to balance that approach with the idea that if they experience something just because I didn't experience it doesn't mean that they're a liar. And I think for a lot of people, that's like the prerequisite. If I haven't experienced what you're talking about, there's no way in hell you can be telling the truth. I think that's a big mistake, you know.
I've always said all the things that I've experienced, the things that I've seen, who am I to doubt someone else's story?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had enough to happen to me that, you know, I tell somebody about, they're like, dude, there's no way, you know, how could that happen? Or how do you explain that? It's like, I don't know how, you know, I don't know how to explain it.
Can't explain half the shit that
you know, why would Sasquatch be on an island? You know, why would it do this? Why would it do that? There's no definitive answers to those questions, and people ask them as if you owe them some sort of explanation, and you don't.
Right. I've seen that so much, though.
Oh, I've experienced that.
People's like, you have information, so you have to share it. I don't have to I don't have to share anything with you.
Yeah.
Myself, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. when Stevie came off the rim, when that whole thing went on with Jay and Judy, there were people out there that says you have to tell us what happened.
Where it happened, and
you know where, when.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with transferring information of any sort, and the way to really wrap your head around it accurately is remove yourself from the Sasquatch subject when we say this. If I was to go out and have some sort of an experience, whether it be hunting, fishing, backpacking, whatever, and I come back and I'm telling you how this mountain lion, this or whatever, as I explain to you what I saw and what I experienced, you're going to ask me a lot of questions that I'm not going to be able to answer. And in most of those cases, you're okay with me not being able to answer it. If you said, well, why was that mountain lion there? And I say, I don't know, dude. We're both fine with not knowing, right? But yet when it's Sasquatch, they ask you these questions as if you owe them that answer. And I just, man, I tell you what, that approach is really hard for a lot of people, I think.
You're obligated to give all the information and...
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've seen things that aren't paranormal that have happened to me in my life, and I still don't really grasp or understand the why or the how of it. And there isn't even a paranormal parameter around those things,
Sure.
You know? So when we have something like this happen, and you start looking at these boundaries of explanation, could it be supernatural? Is it just flesh and blood? Is it this and that? I don't know any of those answers for sure. So when people start asking you and you say, you know, I don't know, and that somehow discounts your credibility of what you shared, that's a problem.
Yeah, because they shouldn't. Your truth is your truth. You know, what happened, you tell what happened. Doesn't mean you have the answers for that. You know, but people, you were there, you experienced it.
It's almost like you need to have a disclaimer. So when somebody says, hey, tell me about your encounter. Okay, here's the deal. I'm willing to tell you everything that happened to me that day. I'll take you on the journey and tell you exactly what happened to me. But if you're going to ask me to explain the hows and the whys and the when or the what ifs, you know, and all this, the origins and things that I don't have answers to, I'm not going to bother wasting my time sharing the encounter. Because if my answer of I don't know isn't good enough for your follow-up questions, I don't know what I could do here, you know. Nobody, when you share your encounter with somebody, it's not on you. You don't have a burden to get them to believe you. And I certainly don't have a burden of proof. You know, I always get a kick out of when Raptor posts in chat. All these people have had experiences and they don't have pictures. Like they owe him photographic evidence just because they bothered talking about their experience. And that's a horrible approach, man. No, they don't owe you that.
No.
But
And I had said that when Stevie and those guys shared their story, I said, guys, you guys are lucky that they even told you any of this.
yeah,
They don't owe you shit.
yeah.
Be thankful. You say, hey, thanks for sharing that. Don't bust their balls about it.
Yeah, and that's why I say when you take Sasquatch out of it, look at how much more empathy and respect we give each other about those types of conversations, right? Let's suppose you endured something really traumatic. And I said, Mogs, I know this is hard for you to talk about, but tell me what happened. And you're like, I was at the convenience store and this guy carjacked me at gunpoint and, scared the shit out of me. And I almost had a heart attack and I was in tears, about pissed my pants. I've never been that afraid in my life. And I start asking you follow-up questions and your answers are, I don't know. I'm fine with that. I don't want to push you. I don't want to make you feel bad. I'm thankful you chose to share that stuff with me. But when it comes to the paranormal or Bigfoot or something else, it's like, fuck you, dude. You owe me some sort of proof to what you're saying. It's like, no, they don't, man.
Right.
They don't.
Well, because it's so far-fetched.
Yeah.
That the only way they're going to believe it is with proof. So.
Well, that's why I say, like, even when I listen to the, 900 and some episodes of Sasquatch Chronicles, or whatever, Bigfoot, it's like, there's some crazy ones out there, right? I'm not naive enough to believe that they're all true. But if you're going to ask me to tell you which ones are and which ones aren't, I don't really know where those parameters lay. And when I hear one that's kind of out there and it's like, dude, this woman or this person or this guy sounds batshit crazy, I still can't prove that they're wrong. I'm either going to choose to believe it or I don't. And I'll probably choose not to believe most of them if I don't know the source or know something about the source, or there's some credibility, the integrity that comes with the source. But, at the same time, I never knew Kerry Arnold. And when I heard his encounter, I looked at how he shared it and what he shared, and I believe him, Same thing with Joe. The first time I heard his encounter, I didn't know Joe that well, but I believed him, Same thing with Jay. So,
well, it's. I've been listening to. That's what got me involved in this whole thing, this whole community and subject with Sasquatch Chronicles. And there's been some where you listen and you're like, what the fuck is that? What?
There's been some I can't get through.
Dude, if they were all identical and kind of boring and none of them were kind of out there or really pushed your imagination or your ability to wrap your head around it, if they were all just A, B, and C, A, B, and C, they all sounded the same. They were all everybody would be saying, how come they're all the same? This is bullshit. They can't all be identical. But the fact that they're not all identical and there are really different boundaries to every person's experience, then that gets the same negative reaction of they can't be this crazy, right? But I don't know. There's a truth out there, and it exists somewhere between I saw it cross the road 300 yards in front of me at night, and I saw it flying a flying saucer, and it stepped out and spoke Chinese. I mean, the one I say is bullshit. The other one I say is likely true. Somewhere in between there exists a truth, and I just don't know where that is.
Sure,
but
no, and there's the stories that I believe, that I've heard that I believe are true as far as like on Sasquatch Chronicles. And there's certain ones that just stood out. That was like,
Well, if you think about the one where the lady from the UK visited the Pacific Northwest and the Sasquatch on the beach that evidently sounds like she went unconscious, was drugged to her car. She believes that the female drugged her to her car to save her from the male one. But the male one was standing there with a heart on and pissing all over himself when he was screaming at her. I mean, this is a lot to digest here, trying to figure out what happened. And because of that, it makes it really hard for people to say, I mean, if you're going to ask me, could it have happened? Yeah. If you're going to ask me, do I believe it happened? I don't know. If I knew that woman real well, if I knew her real well, I might be able to give you a better defined, do I believe it or not? But I don't know her from Adam,
Telling her story, her emotions.
When I introduce somebody to Sasquatch Chronicles, that's the episode that I play.
Yeah.
It's called
There's
Be Alive.
There's a lot of side stuff that exists in that story that makes it hard to discount. The officers that were involved, they went back and re-interviewed them, and they went on record and said, yeah, well, we looked at her where she was. We could see. I mean, they aren't saying this happened. They're saying a lot of these little things, the evidence of, was she scratched up? Was she drugged? These officers are saying yes to this stuff, So it made it like, holy crap, there's actually something more than just some wild story that exists here.
Yeah.
And then you look at what would be the motive. She's from the UK visiting the Pacific Northwest, evidently had no experience with Sasquatch, never listened to anybody talk about him, nowhere on her radar. And she goes out to take some pictures and whatnot and spend some time on that beach area that was fairly isolated and experienced what she experienced. It's hard to say there was a motive there for her.
She was there she went to that beach to take pictures of otters.
Yeah. And her reason for being in the area was a business trip.
Yeah. Well,
she's from the UK. This is like being on a different planet for her being there in the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
I think that was up by Big Sur.
Yeah.
Somewhere up that way.
I just, like I say, I don't think there's anything in it that is a smoking gun that proves that is true. But yet, other than it being so crazy with crazy details, it's hard to wrap your head around because the amount of stuff that she's able to share in this thing that you typically don't hear happening in other encounters, it's hard to look at and say somebody this woman isn't Stephen King. I mean, can you believe she just woke up one morning and said, I'm going to make all this up? That's kind of hard to wrap your head around too,
Yeah, I believe her story. It's one of the ones that I do believe. And that's why if I introduce someone to Sasquatch Chronicles, I'll be like, hey, check this story out.
Yeah. Even if somebody's like waist deep in the Bigfoot community and they've never heard that story, it's fun to have somebody listen to it and then just ask them, what are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you're new, don't know anything about Bigfoot, or whether you've been in this community for 10 years researching it, it is really a thought-provoking encounter. But
even just the reaction, the details down to when she got back to the hotel and she had to walk through the lobby because of the way the hotel was set up, and the valet parking guy, looked at her funny because she was all fucked up.
Yeah.
Drug through the dirt, literally.
The thing is she had scrape marks like going down her hip.
The left. Yeah.
Her hip. And, you know, if I wanted to, like, put a scrape on my arm or on my calf or something to try to fake an injury, if I was that desperate to do so, you could probably do that. I don't know how you run a scrape that goes midway up your stomach, all the way down your hip, down your leg, like you were drugged across gravel.
Well,
I don't know how you do that to yourself.
Her coat was up by her head.
Yeah, it was.
Her coat had gotten dragged up, so her coat was above her head, and her arms were like out of.
We're gonna have to figure. For anybody who hasn't heard this episode, Jen or somebody's gonna have to find the episode number and tag it in the chat.
It's called I shouldn't be alive. I think it's 515 but it's
somewhere around.
If you look it up.
Yeah,
I shouldn't be alive is the name of it. So I'm sorry, dude. I don't know how long you've been sitting back there, Pat.
Hey.
I just happened to look down.
20 hours.
Wow.
20.
20
hours.
Figured he'd wait.
He was waiting.
I used the bathroom twice.
20 hours? You got fucking
47 cigarettes later.
45,000 cigarettes later. Very much.
Years later.
So, yeah, I'm just going to say this. And I fell behind because I have to shuffle around the windows and the platforms that I can actually get into StreamYard. So I lost a few minutes. But I just picked up on what you guys were talking about. I don't believe that story at all.
I
wouldn't expect you to.
Somebody who says that, I can't argue that you should, to be honest with you. I mean, I respect that some people will hear that and say, here's why I don't believe it. I think you can go either way on it, but
when I
red flags?
When I first heard that story on Chronicles, it was compelling to me. But since then, I've swam these waters enough to start recognizing false narratives and bad things and just red flags to where I could at least say this. There's a lot of red flags with that story. And there is. And it doesn't mean that I have to, like, going back to what you were saying earlier, Jeff, about even your own encounter, that I would have to go, like, talk to that chick. Oh, by the way, which you can't do, right? There's no vetting of her.
Yeah.
So unlike you, Jeff, you're out here in the Bigfoot world. You could be vetted. I could ask you right now. I could look you in the eye, and I could say, Are you full of shit?
Sure, and
right?
and also another important thing, Pat, which we've experienced with, whether it's Carrie Arnold, Jay, Joe, anybody who shared an encounter, you've heard them do it numerous times over and over, and you can compare these accounts to each other, whereas hers was one recording, known forever. I mean, it's not like she did it 15 times and people say, dude, the 7th time she did it, she said that and she never said that in the others.
You only get the one time of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like, that's it. Like, that's it. That's all you ever get. And the intro to the fucking show now, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like, so.
Is that why you don't believe it? You don't like it?
Because it's annoying.
Yeah, so unlike...
So Tina asked, can someone link the encounter? If you go up,
it's
Mr. Lee put the link in here.
Yeah,
in the chat.
English woman has improbable Bigfoot encounter on a beach where there's, 3 miles.
They should have just called it Sasquatch had a boner and peed all over it.
And that too.
I mean,
yeah. And so, like, there's just a lot of red flags there. If I could go over them real quick. The biggest red flag is this elusive, right, rare animal walks out onto a fucking beach where it's completely exposed, and on all sides or most sides, just
Well,
in the middle of the day.
She
I think it
didn't,
was
but
little
hold on.
cool.
She went on the beach and she seen it waist deep in the water with the mother and the juvenile or whatever on the shoreline. I don't think she saw it walk out onto the beach. She just looked over and
No.
boom, there they were.
No,
It had to
no.
have
She
from
was
land.
in the woods, and she saw them on all fours walk through the woods.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Through the
okay,
beach. There was
okay,
two-
okay. My
There was
bad.
the
So
big
they
male.
basically-
I've heard
female,
so many encounters
three
that started
children.
blending
Yeah,
together.
so they basically came sort of through the same path she did, relatively, is my understanding, which involved a parking lot because she parked somewhere in a car. So this
Yeah.
is a public area.
Yeah.
It sounds, she makes it sound like a very public area. Number one, why is she the only fucking person there? If it's a beautiful place to be with a parking area and a short walk to the beach, why is she the only fucking person there?
Well, it being a gravel parking area where she was parked, it made me feel like there may be several places along the stretch of road where you could pull over, but one of them doesn't receive a lot of attention over the others. Like, you know, maybe
Yeah,
you
but
could there all day long and another car. would.
it's kind of odd that she's the only human being there. It doesn't matter if it's a Tuesday.
I used to live.
6 a.m.
Excuse me. I lived in D.C., born, raised right outside D.C. The Parkway, there's pull-offs, and then there's pull-offs. You park, and then you walk a little ways, and there's, you know, you walk right down to the Potomac River. Doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, it's cut off or it's open public. I'm just saying there's different.
I think what Pat
I'm
brings
saying-
up is on its own, it's really not a substantial red flag. But you start piling it up, maybe
It's all
it carries
speculation.
some weight. I get that. Okay.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
could have been a weekday. It could have been,
Yeah.
you know, I don't even remember what time of year it was. She just
I
happened to
just
be there.
remember it was in the evening, right? It was in the evening, like early
daylight.
evening, or-
I mean,
It was daylight.
But it was like I thought she was acting like they were done with whatever, and she was going to go out there quick at the end of the day and get some foot. Like I can't remember her accounting exactly what time, but I remember hearing it for a couple times, and I had the idea that this is like 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon, like towards the end of the day.
I'd say it probably roughly was that. The funny thing is that it popped up. It popped up while I was listening to Chronicles the other night, and I skipped it. I was like, I don't even want to hear this again. Like, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm like, so here's the situation. It is a public place. There are, people go there. It's the way she described it. She's the only person there. She has a fucking camera, and and she gets attacked, and it just and drugged back towards her car through that like very public sort of path. None of it makes sense with the 3-mile view of the ocean in the background, like where anybody could have just sailed by, and that's where Sasquatch hangs out. I mean, do they hang out in wide open areas, or are they really reclusive? Which is it? It sounds like they would have had to put themselves in a position, not only like as an individual, but there was 4 of them. Put themselves in a position of wide open.
When I first heard
area.
this, when I first heard it, I remember thinking to myself, it did seem odd that for a family of Sasquatch would place themselves someplace that wide open. It seemed a little too vulnerable for something that really its number one priority is to remain elusive and undiscovered. I mean, it's pretty wide open.
When you can see 3 miles out to the horizon of an ocean where humans obviously travel quite a bit. in
And they
those
could have
areas.
waited till after dark and accomplished the same thing if it was just about getting clean and getting in the water and
No, they were collecting
eating
the mouths
seaweed.
collecting seaweed.
Seaweed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that was the point I was trying
don't
to get to
know.
before, is that you can park in a public place like the Parkway where I grew up, and there's a ton of people down at the viewing area. I could walk 10 minutes, not even that, and
Not seeing
completely, yeah, secluded.
Yeah, those.
I understand. I understand the argument.
I
As
mean,
far as,
the point is that those kinds of like cool little areas, I have them at the lake around here. I've got cool little areas that I know of around the lake. Little private beaches, if you will. And I could go there on a Sunday, and there'll be somebody set up with a fucking tent and a grill. Like, I thought it was cool, like in private. Like, people will gravitate to cool areers.
it doesn't
And,
mean they don't.
Yeah,
at this,
it doesn't mean there's always somebody occupying that,
Yeah, but again, like broad daylight.
Why would the Sasquatch be there? It seemed
I'll-
like because it
I'll
sounded
tell you
like they knew what they were doing. They've done it before here. I get it. Why would they put themselves in that situation? But whatever they were doing, it's been done before. They knew what they were doing.
I'll tell you one thing that I will not do, and that's look at something like this and take the human element of the person involved and try to say, look, she had a camera. Why didn't she do this right? I'm going to tell you, the human element is the most unpredictable element in this. Some humans will curl up on the ground, crying in fear, paralyzed, can't move in a situation like that. And others will think clear as a bell.
That's what she said.
And when it comes to which ones will do which, there's no predictability there until it happens, until you're in that moment.
The thing is that that's exactly what she said. She said she was paralyzed with fear and that she wasn't able to take the picture. Like that
she was
part
going
of
to
the
take
narrative.
the picture. That's why when she first stepped out into that the off the trail or the end of the trail that looked down on the beach, she saw them and she was going to take a picture. She started up with the camera and the lens cap fell off. It bounced down to them, and that's when the male turned around. They all turned around, but the male came out of the water and was, in my opinion, was going to kill her.
Yeah.
That's why he had the erection. He was pissing all over the place. He reached such a point that he was going to kill her. There was another story from Sasquatch Chronicles where this Sasquatch chased the guy into his garage, and it had an erection, and it pissed all over the garage. So I think those are extreme situations where they're going to kill that person.
The point I'm making is, I know that people in research that I look at just based on what I know of them, and I would say, if that dude's ever in that moment, I know they're going to get the job done. No, you don't. I've been in the military, and I was in a squad to where we trained every day to handle combat. And in a firefight, 2 of my 9 guys are broken like little girls. And they lived and breathed that shit. But under duress, they were broken. You cannot predict who's going to be able to handle that type of stuff until you're handling that type of stuff sometimes. And so that's why I say, I'm not saying she's right or wrong or did something right or wrong. I'm just saying the fact that she's from the UK in a different area she's not familiar with, went there to film otters, we can take all that into consideration. But the moment she's under duress, why wasn't she able to do something? I refuse to go there because I know every human will be different.
Sure. And that's all fair. But at the end of the day, when I listen to stories and I listen to encounters, there's kind of a Goldilocks zone with me. And I believe Jeff's encounter, I believe Jay's encounter, I believe the other Jay's encounter, Jay Birch, I believe Joe's encounter. So these are people I've met. and been able to talk to and like really like get to know his people, I believe their encounters, and none of their encounters are as exceptional as the English chick on the beach. That's this outlandish encounter, and that comes with me knowing a guy named Kelly Ray Jones who claimed he had a fucking relationship at the age
Yeah.
of 9 or 10 with a juvenile Sasquatch. So, and also the Justin Smayhaw thing. So I'm friends with Justin Smayhaw, and I believe his story, and I believe Kelly's story, and I at least believe, as much as I believe Jeff, I believe that happened to you, dude. And Kelly Ray Jones claimed he fucking had a relationship with the Sasquatch. He was
Well,
friends.
here's the thing: if you're gonna ask, if we're gonna, let's say, my opinion, your opinion, Moog's opinion, Stevie's, everybody in chat, that's one thing. But if we're gonna lean, let's say, towards a professional, or try to lean towards a professional, and I'm not saying he is or isn't. I get there'll be people that will argue that too. But when Leon has approached me about my encounter, the first thing he references is, I've heard you share it 11 times, and I have not found where you deviated from the exact same set of details every time, and the way that you where you run into certain emotions while sharing it, that happens every time. And because you have all of those to compare against each other, to him that's like the most compelling in
Yeah, I
how he
agree.
would vet something like that.
Sure.
It's your
And
consistencies.
that's fair. That's the way it should be vetted.
Yeah,
That's a part of
and
the
so
vetting
that's why I
process.
say, when we're talking about any episode of Sasquatch Chronicles, or something you read where somebody shares an encounter, I we can take it for what it is on the surface, but when you don't have that luxury of hearing it shared more than once to where you can compare those accounts to each other, it gets difficult. I think it becomes kind of a coin toss, to be honest with you. There really is no way to ensure what I'm hearing or what I'm reading is likely true or even likely untrue. I don't know how you can resolutely draw an opinion based on a single account of something.
I mean, I just go back to, what makes sense. Like, are there red flags? And with
Yeah.
the English, the English, you know, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. With her, I get red flags. So
Because she annoys you.
with Jeff, I don't get red flags. You know, and with others, again, like I just referenced some other outlandish stories
Well,
that
for
I don't have the
me,
same red flags.
I'll be honest with you. The red flags I've gotten just out of a few people from our community on their accounts and what they've done, a lot of times my red flags don't come from their Bigfoot experience. It's when they're sharing something else and they trip up and they aren't being honest.
There's a
And I
lot of
know
that
for a
though.
fact they aren't being honest about something. I now have to back up and say
Question everything else.
the integrity is broken here.
I'll tell you this, dude. I'll say this right now. Like, Jeff, you're an honest person. Like, I've gotten to know you over the years, and I don't know. I'm pretty good at poker. But you're an honest person, man. I find you
Well,
to be
I think
honest.
that me and you have had our arguments. We've had things we don't agree on. We've actually had fights, Pat. But I think we've done it in a way to where I think every emotion you've displayed to me and every emotion I've displayed to you was honest. I
Yeah,
don't think I approached you in a way that's ever been non-genuine. I may have been wrong or something, but I never
damn right
tried
about
to
that.
deceive you about something or vice versa.
Damn right about that. You're an honest person, and so is Mogs, and so is Stevie B. and so is Jay Fritz, right? And let's keep going. Like, there's other people. Kerry Arnold was fucking honest, man. He was an honest guy. Everything he did was from the heart. Like,
And
because
that's
of what
not to
happened to
rubber
him.
stamp him as a saint. There's a lot of things he did I didn't agree with. There's a lot of
Me
things
too.
the way he approached that, certain guests and the way he approached questioning them. And I kind of felt like maybe to some extent there were moments where his ego got in the way a little bit. I'm just telling you, this was my feeling toward him. But when it comes to his encounter and his being honest and his trying to not be genuine, just because somebody has some flaws doesn't mean that they aren't all of those things,
He was 100% honest, I felt, in his encounter. I
Yeah.
believe his encounter just as much as I believe your encounter, Jeff.
Karen wrote in chat. She's been on chat on other podcasts. Saw her a week or two ago. She's not hiding.
Who?
Talking about Claire. I'm guessing that's because that's what somebody was mentioning earlier, that there's no vetting her.
What, is this the woman from the episode we were talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I never knew her name.
Oh, that's an older episode. I mean, it goes back.
Yeah,
it goes way back. I know. I don't know of any vetting of Claire. I mean, if it's there, please link it in chat.
No.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of anybody who's ever went back. I know there were people that said they went to that location and talked to the inn, the valet, and they had talked to actually two of the police deputies that were on the police force about the report and things like that. But I've never heard of anybody saying they re-interviewed her or anything. But, for all I know, I mean, Wes is the one who knows who these people are and who knows how long he knew who she was before anybody else knew who she was. I don't know. I don't know any of those details.
Well, I mean, you can't miss her voice. You can't miss her story. And I'm not aware at all of any kind of follow-up that's ever been done with her.
Yeah. If there is, I'd love to learn about it. I really would, but I'd never heard of it. Can't say that I've researched that deep to see if there was, though. I really haven't.
Well, if it's true or it's not, it's a good story.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that it's entertaining. Bigfoot stories are entertaining, even Jeff's. And here I will sit and look Jeff in the eye and go, you know what, Jeff? I believe your story. I believe it. But it's fucking entertaining as shit. Like, holy shit. It picked up a log and fucking hit you and you ran away and all that stuff. Like, that's entertaining.
But the way Jeff explains it now, looking back on it, makes sense as far as the log throwing was an escalation. That's where it made.
Yeah, I think originally hearing that tree snap and that loud crack was purposefully done to get three young boys to get back in their boat and get the hell out of here, but
right.
Instead, and here comes this asshole up the trail.
And so is 100% as real as that could be. It's still entertaining as fuck for people to listen to. And that's, at the end of the day, man, it's a conundrum with, it's almost a problem. It's because...
I also think that there comes a pairing of, one of the things that makes Jay's encounter so interesting to me is Jay's ability to recall those details and communicate them to you. It feels like you're standing there or sitting there with him as he takes you through that. And I've had people tell me that when they hear me share my encounter, it feels like they're walking next to me through that.
And
A lot
I
of
agree
people
with that. That is what
have these
happens.
types of
Yeah.
encounters, and they aren't really good at communicating what's happened or details or dealing with the emotions that they experience. They just don't tell it the same way, and that's because everybody's different. And some people get in front of a room with 10 people, they lock up, they can't say hi. You know, it's just
But,
different
I
for
mean,
everybody.
At the end of the day, man, what makes your story, any different than the English chick on the beach, or what I would say is Kelly Ray's story, or anybody. I mean, it's like some of the outlandish stuff. At some point, you kind of have to start cutting that off. To again, I started this whole thing by saying, Jeff, you're in the Goldilocks zone. You walked up on one of these things, and you saw it like clear as day, right? No mistaking. I'm just gonna say, it wasn't a a guy in a ghillie suit or a hunter or anything like that.
I've made the comment before that I'm 95% sure that this would be what you would refer to as a Bigfoot. But
Yeah,
the people say, well, why aren't you 100%? I revert back to the Doug Hycheck deal of something getting out of its niche. How come there's a lake where there's lake trout that weigh 40% more than every other lake trout in every other lake? There are areas where something could get out of its niche. And I kind of wonder, was I looking at a human that simply either evolved or devolved from a point to where it just was way bigger and way more muscle mass than I could wrap my head around?
It still makes it.
But I don't think that's
right.
right. I don't think that's what it was. But the human elements to its face and the way that it stood was like, God, you don't look at other animals. I don't look at an 1,800-pound moose. I don't look at a bull elk through binoculars or from 50 yards away and say, damn, that looks kind of human. There is no animal on this earth that I've been in the presence of outside of being at a zoo and seeing a primate and felt like, wow, look at the human comparisons there. But that's what I was face to face with, was a nose, eyes, a mouth, things that looked like mine, kind of, So.
I think that story just annoys him.
I know.
I mean, that's.
It was from 2000.
If you're taking a share right now, just wait until you're done, okay?
The other really interesting thing about Carrie's, Jay's, and my encounters are that all three of those were during the day, in daylight, fairly close up. Mine was really close up, but even Carrie's and Jay's were not far away.
No.
And it was in broad daylight. I think there's 0% chance that this was misidentification.
And Joe, we have to throw Joe's encounter in there too, because that was very close up.
Yeah. So I just, it's a lot different than hearing somebody say, well, I was in a fishing boat and I looked at the shore, and from 115 yards away, I saw this. And it's when you are talking about daytime, right away, that Class A encounter takes on a different approach. It's daylight.
Yeah.
There is no mistaking what you're looking at.
Yeah.
You start factoring in it being nighttime, when you start talking about bears, humans, all the things it could be. How is there any definitive that you could say, I guarantee you it wasn't? It was nighttime, dude. Daytime, that completely changes.
It's not even on the same planet, Jeff.
Yeah.
So, like, all the narratives that are revolved around nighttime, encampment, stories and shit like that. It's not even on the same planet.
For
as
me,
far as I'm concerned.
what really is overwhelming when I look back on it and relive this, it's not just that I was face to face with it on the trail. It's once I got in the boat and we got out and I felt like, holy shit, we're going to live through this. Like we're safe in this boat getting away from the shoreline. I'm trying to convey the urgency of we need to get out of here to my friend and his little brother. And I look up at the shoreline and I see it again. There is no, holy shit, was I out? Did I freak out? Did I lose my mind for a moment?
You're
No,
still
here it is.
hallucinating. Yeah,
Here it is again, standing there.
Yeah.
And it was stood there that time long enough to look at it closely and say, holy crap, it is that tall. Like if I could tell from 70, 80 yards away that if I ran up to that thing on the beach, jumped as high as I could, I don't think I could have touched the top of its head. It was like the rim of a basketball hoop.
Yeah,
I could touch
you're
the net, but I
talking
couldn't
10
touch
feet.
the
Yeah.
rim.
And
That's what it looked like.
Your friend's brother didn't take that all too well, did he?
No, I mean, he was beside himself trying to fathom this. But when I was talking to Paul, once we had gotten out and we were driving away in the boat and Paul stopped and we started talking about what had happened, I told Paul, I says, that had to be 10 foot tall. And he said, absolutely. And that's what, when you have that sounding board that's there and saw it, it's like, dude, I don't have to wonder, did I have a flashback from my acid trip I had at ZZ Top when I was a kid, This is something that actually happened here. So.
Jeff, I have two questions for you. I've been dying to ask you recently. First question is this. If you could take your modern day self, right, and put yourself back in that situation, as far as having a cell phone in your pocket, honestly, just put yourself in that situation that you have a fucking cell phone in your pocket. Is there any way in any point in that encounter that you would have ever thought or been able to and actually pulled your cell phone out, pulled the camera up, and taken any video?
There's no way I would have been able to do it on the trail where I was face to face with it. In the boat, when we were backing away and it came back out onto that beach, I think I could have at that point. But I'll be honest with you, it's from a distance now where when you saw the video, you would argue, is this a man in a suit? How tall is it actually? I don't have anything. It's standing all alone at the water's edge, 30 feet from a tree line behind it. I mean, I don't know if you would be able to tell how big it is, and two, if you could actually tell that it's not a man in a suit from 70, 80, 100 yards away. I mean, maybe you could, but
so
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know
there's
no way I would have
most
been able to film it on the trail. There's no way.
I think that's the most important sort of aspect that I was asking is like in that moment, face to face.
Yeah.
Are you at all able to put yourself in that situation again with a cell phone, the power of a cell phone to take a picture or video, whatever? And you pretty much saying nope, not at all.
I not on the trail. Like I say, my experience, I think the most unique thing about my encounter was that there was a second part. There was a second viewing of it minutes after the first one where it walked out onto the beach as we were, somewhere between 70 and 100 yards back out into the bay. And like I say, looking at the shoreline, I knew what I was seeing when I looked at the shoreline because I had just stood in front of this thing.
So, but up to the point that it walked out until up to that point. They just had word on, or you didn't even tell them what you saw, did you?
Even when I was standing on the trail thinking that there was a black bear to my left and that's what made that sound when it broke that tree, I really thought that's what it was positive I was going to see a black bear. I was a little worried with it being the first week in June. I might see a black bear with 2 cubs or something, and then I'm going to be in a problem. So I stood there watching and watching. Now, had I had a cell phone, I'm not going to say I wouldn't have taken the cell phone out and maybe turned it on and be like, hey, there's a black bear out here or something. But when I turned around 90 degrees and it's standing on the trail 10 feet in front of me, and in within a second and a half, I look up at its face and boom, I'm on my back sliding down the hill. How would I film that? I mean, there wouldn't even been time to try to do it, you know? I think I probably would have dropped the phone and never got the phone back the way that I had flown down and slid down the hill. So, I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's a fair question because you're one of the guys that had that experience where that technology didn't exist, and you're one of the guys that understands that technology now. So it's interesting to me to like kind of throw you into that situation.
It's kind of weird, but it's kind of weird to put him in that situation because I don't know, because we like now like a phone is like an appendage to us, you know.
Yeah,
and it's
it's always with us. We're always like.
I think
we ran into a bear. I took the phone out.
Since we were there 4 days prior to me having this, and we were there for another 3 after it. With today's technology, I think what would be more likely would be to go back to that island and very quickly hang up 2 or 3 cams, you know, game cameras facing out towards the beach, and throw a couple of those dead fish out there on the beach and get in your boat and get the hell out of there, and try to go back a week later and get those cameras, or even just a day or 2 later before you left the area. But, you know, I often thought these guides, that one guide that had an experience the fall before hunting on the same island, I always thought, why wouldn't he have gone back there and tried to have, you know, a further encounter or further evidence, things like that? And I don't know, you know, there's a lot. I'm not sure what the answer to that is, but this guy lived and breathed his life out there. He made a living guiding hunters out there. And the more you learned about this thing, would you be more comfortable doing that for a living? Or would you rather just say, I'm not going back to that island and try to move on from it? You know, I don't know what I would do.
A whole lot of, I don't know.
He had a brother that believed his experience and one that thought he was lying about it. And I'm wondering if trying to get more evidence would have helped his situation. I think he felt trapped in that relationship with his brothers out there that it was easier just to leave it alone, probably.
Yeah. So my second question to you, Jeff, would be this. Like in your best recollection and like who you are now, your intelligence level now where you're at, and looking back on that, like what you encountered in the woods that day, was it a flesh and blood creature? And how confident are you of
I
it?
think that it's a flesh and blood creature, and this is just where I'm starting, okay? I'm not saying that evidence couldn't lead me a different way. But where I have to start at is that what I saw was flesh and blood, and I believe you have a species that is devolving and shrinking, and it has become, as it does so, it's in those last moments where there's just spatters of like if you looked on North America and said, show me a shaded area where they're at, that it's just spattered here and there. Like there are abandoned niches of what may have been larger populations of them, but we're looking at the last ones of those niches just kind of left in this
So you think
population.
that a species on the verge of extinction?
I believe so. If you
Thank
forced me
God.
to take a position on it, I think that's what it is. I think it's devolving out of that to where, and I think to some extent, humans may have done that a little bit. I mean, I think that it's likely that we probably saw in a UV vision spectrum thousands and thousands of years ago when we hunted at night and lived in caves, you know. that perhaps we've abandoned that trait and it became recessive and was replaced with the vision that we have now. But I think there are things about this species that from our human existence are hard for us to wrap our heads around, of what it may be devolving from, what it was capable of when they were in big numbers, and maybe they still have some of those capabilities, but we're just looking at the last remnants of a population, you know, just isolated little niches of these little clusters of them. But
yeah, which kind of circles back to, you know, how do you negotiate truth from fiction? Again, Jeff, I'm here like kind of talking to you as a representation of truth. And so, where are we at in the Bigfoot world? What percentage of truth versus what happened to you? What percentage of untruth versus what happened to Jeff Harding and what happened to Jay Fritz and what happened to Joe Snyder and what happened to Jay Birch? You know,
well, I'd like to think that everybody, when you're trying to pursue the truth of this mystery, people are going to start from different positions. Some people start from where I'm at. It's a flesh and blood thing. Let the data show me something otherwise. I'll follow it if the data leads me somewhere else, right? There are other people who say it's supernatural. It can use portholes and that. What I'm saying is, even if they start at a different spot than me, if we follow the data and apply the same scientific method properly, we could start at opposite ends of the spectrum and still arrive at the same truth. The problem is people aren't following that scientific method. They're following their own beliefs, their own theories. They will not put those sacred cows at risk. And we aren't both going to arrive at the truth, you know. I'm not saying you have to start where I'm starting from to get to the truth, but you've got to follow the data correctly in order to get to the truth. And I don't think most of the community is doing that, to be honest with you. But
true story.
No, I don't think there's enough people out there. Like the majority of the people aren't approaching it in a scientific fashion.
Yeah,
you know,
you're right about that.
It's a weekend warrior thing. They're going out, they're knocking on trees, they're making howls, they're doing what's that?
Stomping through the woods.
Yeah,
I just you know, this isn't anything to do with what I'm going to say with what Stevie and Jay and them experienced out on the rim, okay? Because I believe you guys had an experience. I don't know what it was. I'm not so sure you guys understand what it was yet, okay, in detail. But I will say this. My experience was when I was 18 years old. A year and a half ago, doing this work up in northern Minnesota in this one isolated area that I felt there was activity in, I heard tree knocks. I heard whistles. I felt like I was collecting evidence that they were there. Never saw one. Never saw one. But I see things get done that would be very hard to explain, that if it wasn't one of them, it would have had to have been a human, and I didn't see any humans. There were no humans out there.
You
Then
also
I
Now-
can relate.
That said, I've got 30 years between those two experiences, right? And I'm talking about 1,000 nights in some of the most remote areas, guiding elk hunters, I mean, off the grid, where I have not had a Bigfoot encounter. And I have been in some lonely, lost, crazy places out there and never had one out there. So this idea that we're going to go out this weekend and bring the cameras and poof, we had an experience, here it is. I have a hard time with that. When I see a group say we're going to go here, and then Monday they're like, well, here's all of our evidence. Let us tell you about all the things that happened. It's hard for me to, now I'm not saying that didn't happen to them. I'm certainly not. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around it when I look at all those remote places that I was for 30 years between these two things and never experienced it.
Agreed.
It should have happened if they were out there in the numbers some people want you to believe. I don't believe they are. I don't believe the numbers that some want you to believe they're out there and are at that level. But I do believe that they are spattered and spread out like those remnants would be, you know, of those remnants of a population that is on the verge of, you know, maybe 500 years away from being gone, or 300 years. I think this is what it looks like. They aren't all in one area. They're
years.
just spattered across here, little niches of them. But
sad.
I want answers.
Everybody wants
I was gonna
answers.
say,
dude.
don't we all?
I know
I think
know.
they've realized the only way they survive is to be spattered across this geography like they are. If there was
Yeah,
ever an
but
area where
they
150
only
of
have
them
so
all
much room
camped
to
out in the
move.
same spot, they couldn't be elusive. They wouldn't remain hidden.
True, but
We'd find them.
they only have so much room to move.
I agree. I agree.
So yeah, so that goes in a whole different direction of
I will
claim.
tell you this. I live in a pretty, not really that remote area, you know. And right now, if I walked off in the darkness off my back deck and walked through the cornfields and walked through the bean fields and down the gravel roads and this, I could get 15 miles away from here without anybody seeing me
Of course.
at all. So the idea that how do you move in that? If you're only moving at night,
You can move anywhere.
yeah. I'm not saying it's easy. And I'm not saying there's obstacles and challenges, but I think it would be harder in areas like Florida and places like that. I look at where I'm at up here. The population just isn't.
Yeah.
When I say I can move 15 miles at night, nobody find me.
Whole different
I
subject.
don't know what this looks like out here. I mean, I'm more apt to get attacked by a mountain lion in that cornfield or trampled by a frickin', you know, a deer than I am by being discovered by a person. So,
Well, we're at that 2-hour mark already.
Went by fast.
Yeah, it did.
well, it was a fun conversation.
Yeah, see, I always admired the way you approached your research with that area you were at. Is, yeah, you've heard the knocks, you've heard the whistles, but you went about it where you didn't acknowledge it. You didn't react to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not in a
Visibly
race.
to them.
I'm not going to be in a race to try to prove one speck of data. When I come back to my kayak, and my kayak isn't my paddle isn't in the cockpit of the kayak, it's been the plunger button hit and it was separated into two pieces, one laying on the seat and one leaning against the kayak. I look at that and say, that has to be a human. I mean, I'm not going to say a Bigfoot couldn't do it if it could figure out the plunger button deal, but this really looks like something human. Now, I'm not going to be in a hurry to try to prove whether it's a Bigfoot or a human. I've got 34 more weeks to kayak into this area and keep paying attention. And that's why it was easy for me to not go running towards a wood knock sound, you know? I don't want to ruin this. I just want it to play out, you know?
But that takes a lot of discipline.
Well, it does. And I can tell you when you're alone and you're more than a stone's throw away from where somebody could help you if you broke a leg or something, you feel pretty small out there. When you're walking through there and you hear something, dude, you feel like it is just so surreal. I don't even know how to explain it to people, you know?
Well, I had said, without going into details, when we came off the rim, during that experience, I've never in my life felt so small and insignificant.
And that was having Jay and Judy there.
Yeah.
Being able to say, what do you make of that? If you're alone and you don't have that, did you hear that? Somebody to bounce us at, you're just standing there going, holy shit, dude. Do you feel that big right now? It is crazy.
I've never in my life felt so.
I compare it to is like I've shared this before. A friend of mine flew jets off of an aircraft carrier during the Gulf War, and they would fly out at night, refuel right before they'd go in and drop their bombs and stuff, and then they'd fly back like 2 hours back to this aircraft carrier. And he said that 2-hour flight back, wondering where your bombs fell, how many people died, what kind of impact it had. And you're in radio silence, so you can't talk to anybody else. You're just alone in that cockpit. He talked about how small he felt. And I don't think it's the bombs and all that make you feel small. It's the isolation. It's not having somebody to say, did you hear that? What do you think that was? Or when you're operating alone out there, that's really, really hard, I think, to deal with. But
Well, when you don't have anything to bounce it off of, like you said, because you're stuck with your own thoughts.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that kind of brings up the Leon challenge, right? It's like,
It's exactly what it is. The Leon challenge is great.
You know, and I kind of feel like I could say to anybody.
So the Leon challenge was, Pat was talking about how he's just in the darkness alone. This is hard. And Leon said, you need to face this head on and go down, drive out to a gravel road, a fire trail or something, park in the dark, leave your flashlight in the car, and turn your phone on just to your face so that you can record yourself, and just walk a mile up that pitch dark road without a flashlight and stand there alone in the dark and turn around and walk back. Can you do that alone in the dark? And most people probably can't, to be honest with you. Even though when you look at the physical danger or threat of doing it, there's virtually nothing, really. I mean, there's a few critters around, but, I think your biggest threat in a situation like that would be another human.
I've yet to do it, but I predict that if I ever choose to do it, I will have a Bigfoot encounter.
Yeah.
And
once you do it once,
what scares me is that you can manifest a Bigfoot encounter somehow, and it's not real. It's all fake. It's all in your head. And I think that if I did that, I should just do it to prove this. is that you actually can manifest a fucking Bigfoot encounter in your head.
Jackie
Because
says
a
in
lot of
chat.
people do.
Jackie says in chat with the Leon challenge. She says it's fun. I do it. I'll tell you, the first time I did that, it wasn't fun. But I've gotten comfortable enough now that when I park my truck, I'll walk 4 miles in the pitch dark before the sun comes up to an archery stand that's buried out somewhere in the wilderness. Doesn't bother me at all. No flashlight, nothing. And there's plenty of shit in that area that I should probably be afraid of, but I don't let it control my thoughts when I'm walking through there. But the first time I did it, it was paralyzing. I mean, I think you kind of get numb to the idea that this is a dangerous thing. You're able to really control that. But
See,
No.
I haven't even done it, so
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll try it.
yeah,
don't
Jackie
like-
says she prefers winter when the bears aren't so active. That's probably a good idea. It's up here in over in Montana where I'm doing my archery hunting. This is a problem because in the last 2 weeks there's been 2 grizzly bear attacks within 15 miles of
Jeez.
that have attacked humans. And what's really crazy is it's the western. I mean, a lot of people, they might not get this, but it's the western side or the eastern side of the Rockies in the plains of Montana. So you remember the story, The Revenant, where Hugh, whatever his name is, fights the grizzly bear? That happened in South Dakota. And where it happened in South Dakota, if you go there, it's giant fields of level prairie grass as far as you can see. There are no mountains there. But it was grizzly bear habitat 130, 120 years ago. It's not anymore. They're in those mountainous areas. But it seems like they're starting to spread back out east of the Rockies, back into the plains. That's been the last couple of years. These biologists are really studying that.
yeah, and that's a real, like, a known animal.
Yeah, because you're out upland bird hunting for pheasants or something in Montana, and then all of a sudden you're walking in grass that's as high as your head, and here's a damn grizzly bear. And it's not
shouldn't
on a
be
mountain
there.
somewhere.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be there, but it is.
Yeah.
But
They're adapting or readapting or repopulating areas.
yeah,
that they
they're just
formerly-
they're becoming familiar and starting to be comfortable with these areas that they used to habitat, but for whatever reason they stopped. I would imagine it had to do with all the things that happened with like the gold rushes. I believe there's probably grizzly bears all through the Black Hills, and all the humans that rushed out to Deadwood and all through the Black Hills during those there's 15, 20 years of gold mining where it was like a circus going on out there. It kind of drove them further into the Rockies, But
Yeah.
All right, guys, I am gonna call this a night.
Good night, Jen.
Thank you guys for coming and hanging out, Pat, Jeff.
Bat Mom.
yeah, it was fun. I appreciate you letting us go on.
It's good to see
Oh
you
yeah,
guys.
anytime, man.
Of course.
I like
Absolutely.
getting
Thanks, man.
back into Bigfoot conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys have a good rest of your nights.
You as
You
well.
do the same, man.
Later, taters.
Pat, take
Bye,
care.
Pat.
Thank you. It's always good to see those guys.
All right.
But I knew before Pat opened his mouth that he wasn't going to agree with that
No.
story.
I know. I wrote in chat, I said, shocking.
But hey, I get it, but you're assuming that it's a popular spot,
It's
or
an
you're,
opinion thing,
you don't
you know.
know all the details of where it was, and
The conversation
it's-
started.
either way, it's a good story. Jackie, it's good to see you.
Yes.
Sorry I didn't say hi to a bunch of people. Media Palace, if you're still there, what's up, Eric?
Night, Judy.
Chuck Gonzalez, good to see you.
Mr. Lee, good to see you.
I saw you in there, Bat Mom. I just
You said it like I saw you in there, right, Mom?
Jen. Thank you to my moderators. You guys are doing a great job. I
Yes,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Love you guys. If you guys enjoyed tonight's show, please hit that like button below. Share if you're new. Subscribe and welcome if you are new. I hope you enjoyed yourself. We will be back on Thursday. Same time, same channel. So we'll see you then. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Something
Good
you wanna
night,
say?
everybody.
Peace and God bless.